The gunshot didn't echo. It collapsed the silence. Marcus froze, his hands slick with someone else's blood. The streetlights flickered out, one by one, as if the city itself refused to watch. Somewhere behind him a voice whispered, "You were never supposed to see this." He turned, heart hammering, and saw the face he trusted most. And in that instant, he knew the betrayal had already begun. What happened next shocked everyone and set off a chain of events no one saw coming. Stay with me, this is a story you need to hear. Before we start the story, comment below and let us know where in the world you're watching from today. And if you find this story impactful, don't forget to subscribe for more. Marcus stood at the edge of the mall parking lot, the evening sun folding itself behind the roof lines like a slow bruise. The air smelled of exhaust and fryer oil, a warm, greasy hush that stuck to his shirt. He kept his hands deep in his jacket pockets, thumbs worrying the worn edge of a folded paper, the printout of his class schedule, and the note about the part-time job interview he had at 6. The paper trembled when he shifted his weight. He could feel the tremor in his fingers more than he could feel the heat on his face. He had walked this route 100 times and never noticed how the light made the concrete look like old bone. Teenagers hollered near the food court, a stereo beat leaned into an argument, and somewhere a woman laughed too loud. Marcus watched them all with the small, careful distance of someone used to timing his steps around other people. He counted the spaces between cars as if they could be measured and controlled. 3 empty slots, 2 cars backing out, 1 man unloading a stroller. Control was a thing his life practiced sparingly. A month ago, he had been finishing his application for community college, a stack of essays and hope. His mother, Angela, had pinned a list of rules on the fridge. Keep your phone charged, be home by midnight, don't talk to strangers about money. Angela worked double shifts at the hospital. Marcus had learned the language of exhaustion by the way she moved in the mornings, slow but precise. He wanted to make her proud. He wanted to stop being the reason she stayed up. The interview at the electronics store mattered because it was not just a job. It was a path out of evenings bent over textbooks under a bare bulb. It was a promise he could hand her without saying the words. He smoothed the paper again, felt the indent where his thumb had creased Sunday's sermon verse. He breathed in, and the smell of frying oil sharpened into something else, the copper tin of metal, the distant clank of a shopping cart. All the ordinary things lined up and for a moment made sense. Then the sirens started. They were far at first, the thin high keening that rides over radio words and late-night shows, but they gathered themselves quickly, a pack that found the edge of the parking lot and tore across it. Marcus watched them roll in, 2 police cruisers first, lights stuttering like a bad film, then another, then more. The air tightened. People stopped mid-step, mouths folding closed as if they had been told to. An officer stepped out and moved toward a dark SUV by the entrance. He was a large man with a radio clipped to his shoulder, his boots stirring dust from the asphalt. Another officer called someone over with a short, clipped voice. The crowd thinned into a ring of heads and phone screens held high like placards. Marcus felt the paper in his hand go quiet, like a heart slowing. He turned because the crowd moved and the movement made a shape, a teenager, slim, hoodie drawn up, hands empty and open at their sides. Hands open, the way a person puts their hands when they want to show they mean no harm. Marcus read the posture like a map, and something in him recognized it immediately. The boy looked younger than Marcus, his face not yet cut into the angles of worry. The first officer moved like he'd practiced on a range, direct, low voice, a command folded into normal language. Stop. Hands. It was a sentence built to flatten the world, to reduce a crowd to a single point of action. The teen obeyed. The crowd leaned forward. Phones rose. Marcus felt the animal pressure of 100 eyes and 100 judgments press against his skin. He backed up without deciding to. He had learned young that certain movements could look like intentions, and intentions could be read as threats. He remembered the afternoons on the stoop, the neighbor kids with their small bravado, and the nights when a shout outside the window could mean a fight or a siren. His breathing matched the siren now, in, out, trying to slow the rush of being watched. The officer took a step forward and something in his face changed. Marcus had seen that look before in pictures and on late-night reports, a tilt, a readying. The boy's hands were still open. The officer's hand went to his belt. The gesture was small, ordinary, and then suddenly not. There was a sound like a body hitting a wall. The boy staggered. Marcus heard a sick, wet thud. People screamed. A woman's voice rose sharp with something like recognition. The first officer had knocked him off balance. 2 more officers flanked the teen, bringing him down to the pavement. The scene moved faster than the phones could capture. Hands on a hoodie, a boot stepping, a face pressing into concrete. Marcus took 2 steps forward before his mind caught up. He should not have. His feet found the asphalt like they belonged there, and he stopped where he could see everything. The teen's shoes scuffed, the way his breath came shallow from his mouth, the red smear on his temple where the light caught the skin. Marcus felt the shame hot and private, as if he had failed a test he hadn't known he'd been taking. He thought of Angela's fridge rules and how they had written safety into his life like a program. None of those rules accounted for this. The police moved with a practiced certainty. They cuffed the boy, guided him to the cruiser. Someone from the crowd called out a question. What had he done? And the officers repeated their words like a script. Resisting suspicious behavior, called to the department. The word spun and made a web around the image of the teen pressed to the pavement. Marcus stayed. He watched the cruiser doors close. He watched the officers' faces, their set jaws, the small impatient gestures. He watched a man in a suit step from a black sedan that had slipped into the edge of the lot. The man's expression was small and sharp, a folding of features that meant business. Marcus did not know the name the man carried, but his presence felt like a stitch. He watched the man scan the scene, then lift a hand to a small device pressed to his ear. Marcus's throat went dry. When the officers walked away from the cruiser, they didn't walk like men who expected to be questioned. They walked like men who had closed a case and moved to the next. The crowd maintained itself at the margins like a held breath. Marcus's phone, still in his pocket, vibrated once and went silent. The paper in his hand was forgotten. The folds were soft with his sweat. The narrator who remembers this later will tell it in a softer voice, placing Marcus in a line of young men who learned to hold themselves still when the world tilted. That voice will underline the small, precise habits that kept him safe, the way he counted steps and tuned his posture to lower the chance of becoming an object in someone else's story. The impartial voice will note the exact time the first cruiser's light went red, 5:42 p.m., and record the make of the car and the uniform's patches. Both voices will be true. Both will be necessary. Marcus did not have that distance at the moment. He had only the startled, bright edge of feeling and a slow, patient sense of wrongness. Something had shifted in the air, subtle and large at once, like a window slammed in a quiet room. He walked the last few steps to where the teen sat against the curb inside the cruiser's shadow. The officers' backs were turned. The boy's head lolled, eyes half closed. "Are you okay?" Marcus said. His voice came out thin and uneven. The officers did not look at him. A woman behind him said that she had seen the whole thing, and the words turned into arguments that would later be typed and shared. Marcus felt himself folding inward, a reflexive withdrawal from a world that made sudden rules. He thought of the paper job sheet in his pocket, the possibility of money, and a schedule and evenings that did not feel like a negotiation with fate. He thought of Angela at her kitchen sink, scrubbing a pan with slow, sure movements. He thought of the Bible verse on the fridge and how it had told him to be brave with gentleness. The scent of fryer oil and the warmth of the setting sun seemed to mock the small, hopeful things he carried. The cruiser's lights winked again. The boy in the back turned his face toward Marcus for a quarter of a beat, and Marcus saw something in him that made his chest ache. Surprise, humiliation, a boyhood cut short like a branch. Marcus understood then that this moment would not remain small. It had a pull, a gravity that would bend things around it. He did not know yet how far that bend would reach. He only knew the present weight, and he felt it pressing into the hollow he had been trying to fill with plans and work and patience. The next morning broke under a flat gray sky that looked more like metal than cloud. The city felt muted, stripped of color, as if the night had taken something with it that it wasn't planning to return. Marcus sat at the kitchen table, his elbows braced on the wood, staring at his untouched cereal. The television murmured quietly from the counter, a news report playing footage from a mall. The image was grainy, zoomed in by shaky hands, but he could see it clearly. The boy's hood, the police lights flashing off the windshield, and in the corner of the frame, himself, standing still, frozen, watching. Angela's voice cut through the room. "Marcus, you're not even eating. You've been up since 5. He didn't look up. The reporter's voice was smooth, detached, rehearsed. Authorities say the teenager was detained for questioning after reports of suspicious behavior. The department has released a statement confirming that no charges have been filed. No charges. Marcus clenched his jaw. Angela turned off the television, and the silence that followed was so sudden it rang in his ears. She exhaled, long and tired, the sound of someone who had been fighting too many invisible battles. "You were there, weren't you?" she asked. "At the mall?" Marcus hesitated. "Yeah." "Did you see what happened?" He nodded once, eyes fixed on his cereal. Angela rubbed her forehead. "You need to stay out of that kind of mess. You hear me? You keep your head down, you walk away. We don't get involved in things that don't concern us." The words hit him harder than she meant them to. He knew she was afraid, not of the world, but of what the world could do to someone like him. Still, something inside him twisted. He wanted to ask, what if it does concern us? But he stayed silent, letting the question rot between them. When she left for her shift, he sat there a long time, the image of the boy's blood on the pavement replaying in his head. It wasn't just the violence that haunted him. It was the look in the officer's eyes, the cold assurance that nothing would come of it. And something else too, the man in the black sedan. He hadn't been wearing a uniform. He hadn't moved like a cop. Marcus remembered his face clearly, the way his gaze lingered on him, not the boy him. He grabbed his jacket and stepped outside. The air smelled like rain and bus fumes. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You were at the mall last night. Don't talk to anyone about what you saw." He froze. The message had no name, no signature, just those words. His thumb hovered over the screen. He looked around instinctively, scanning the quiet street, the parked cars, the gray morning light spilling through the fog. A second message came through before he could react. "We'll be in touch. Delete this." His pulse jumped. He deleted the texts, though his fingers shook doing it. For the first time, he noticed the faint red light flashing from the corner of the street, a security camera mounted high above the lamppost. He wondered who was really watching. By noon, he was walking the halls of the electronics store for his interview, though his thoughts were still tangled in the morning. The manager, a round man named Steve, smiled like he'd practiced it. "We like punctuality," he said. "It's rare these days." Marcus forced a polite grin. He answered the questions, nodded where he was supposed to, but his mind kept drifting. Every buzz of his phone made him flinch. Every shadow near the glass door made his stomach tighten. When the interview ended, Steve handed him a paper. "You'll start next week, pending background check." Marcus thanked him and stepped outside. The rain had started, soft and cold. As he crossed the parking lot, a black SUV slowed beside him. The window rolled down halfway. The same man from the mall, dark suit, sharp jaw, calm eyes, leaned toward him. Marcus Gray. He froze mid-step. "Yeah. Who are you?" The man's tone was low, even almost too calm. "I'm Agent Turner, Federal Bureau of Investigation." Marcus blinked. "The FBI." Turner nodded, producing a badge that caught the faint drizzle and flashed silver. "You were present during the incident last night. We'd like to ask you a few questions." Marcus hesitated. "Why me? I didn't do anything." Turner smiled faintly. "That's exactly why we want to talk to you." The SUV door opened, and before Marcus could think, he was sitting in the back seat. The interior smelled like new leather and static electricity. Another man in a dark suit sat beside him, silent, unreadable. Turner drove. The wipers beat time against the windshield. "You saw the officers detain the suspect," Turner said. "Did you notice anything unusual?" Marcus thought of the man's radio, the coordinated movement, the cold precision of it. He swallowed. "I don't know. It just felt wrong." Turner's eyes flicked toward him in the rearview mirror. "What do you mean by wrong?" They didn't ask questions. They just acted, like they already knew who they were looking for. Turner nodded slowly, as if that confirmed something. "That's helpful." Marcus frowned. "What's going on?" Turner didn't answer right away. The SUV turned down a narrow street, the kind lined with warehouses and forgotten buildings. When they stopped, Turner handed him a card. "If anyone contacts you, you call this number first. Do you understand?" Marcus looked at the card. It didn't say FBI anywhere. Just a number. "Why would someone contact me?" Turner leaned closer, his voice low. "Because you saw something you weren't supposed to." Marcus felt the weight of those words settle on him like a stone. "The police." Turner didn't respond. He just looked at him, steady, deliberate, then opened the door and gestured for him to step out. The SUV drove away the moment his shoes hit the ground. He stood there in the drizzle, staring at the card in his hand, the ink beginning to blur. That night he didn't sleep. The house creaked and shifted with the wind. Around midnight, there was a soft knock on the door. His heart jumped. He moved quietly down the hall, every board underfoot betraying him with a groan. When he opened the door, no one was there, only a small envelope taped to the frame. His name was written in neat, block letters. Inside a photo. The image showed the same scene from the mall, the officers, the teen on the ground, Marcus standing in the background. But in this version, the photo was cropped tighter, focused not on the struggle, but on him. His face, turned halfway toward the camera, eyes wide. Across the bottom, a single line typed in red. "We know what you did." Marcus's chest tightened. He read it again and again, as if the words might change meaning. He hadn't done anything, but someone wanted him to believe he had. The next morning, he told himself it had to be a prank. Someone from school, maybe. But when he checked his phone, the previous night's deleted messages had reappeared, this time with an addition. "Don't trust Turner." He dropped the phone. It hit the floor and buzzed once before going black. Marcus stared at it, the reflection of his own face staring back. He could feel the walls closing in, the quiet suburban air turning heavy. Somewhere, someone was watching, someone who knew what he'd seen, and maybe knew more than he did. He sat down, the photograph trembling in his hand. The world had shifted again, first the police, then the agents, and now whoever was behind this message. Nothing felt solid anymore. He looked toward the window, where the gray light pressed faintly against the glass. Outside, across the street, a car sat idling. A black sedan. No headlights. No movement. Just waiting. Marcus closed the curtain slowly, his pulse hammering in his throat. He didn't know who to fear more, the police who acted without reason, or the agents who claimed to protect him. All he knew was that someone had turned him into a piece on a board he didn't understand. And somewhere out there, behind all the flashing lights and polished badges, someone was pulling the strings. Angela came home later than usual that night, the smell of antiseptic clinging to her uniform, her face drawn and pale. The lights in the house were low, just the flicker of the kitchen bulb swinging gently from the fan's draft. Marcus sat at the table, elbows on the wood, the untouched dinner in front of him, long gone cold. The envelope from last night lay beside his plate, empty now, though the photograph was locked away in his drawer upstairs. Angela dropped her keys on the counter. "You're up." Her voice was low, cautious. Marcus didn't look up. "Yeah, couldn't sleep." She poured herself a cup of coffee, even though it was nearly midnight. "You're pale," she said softly. "Something's wrong." Marcus hesitated. For a moment, he wanted to tell her everything. The texts, the photo, the black sedan. But he couldn't bring himself to say it. She already had too much to worry about. Instead, he muttered, "Just tired." Angela nodded, but her eyes stayed on him. She was the kind of mother who could read silence better than words. "It's that boy, isn't it? The one from the mall." Marcus looked up sharply. "You saw it." "Everyone did." She sat down across from him. "They've been replaying it all day. News channels, online clips, even the hospital break room TV. Some people are saying it was self-defense. Others are saying it was excessive force." He clenched his hands together. "They beat him, Mom. He didn't do anything." Angela stared at her cup, her voice quiet. "I know. But saying that out loud doesn't change anything. You think the truth matters to them." Marcus swallowed hard. "It has to." She looked at him, then really looked, the exhaustion, the bruised defiance in his eyes. "You sound like your father." He froze. "Don't." Angela's lips parted, then pressed shut. The silence stretched between them like a wound. Marcus's father had left when he was 8. The man had been all fire and speeches, always chasing justice, always losing to the system. The last time Marcus saw him, he was being taken away in handcuffs after a protest turned violent. Angela took a long sip of her coffee, then said softly, he believed the world could be fixed. That belief nearly broke him. "Don't make the same mistake." Marcus looked down at his plate. "Maybe someone needs to try again." Angela didn't respond. She reached out, brushed his hand briefly, and stood. "Get some rest, please." When she left the room, Marcus stared at the door long after it closed. The next day at school, everything fell off. Conversations stopped when he walked past. Whispers followed him down the hall. By lunchtime, his best friend Noah caught up with him near the lockers. "Dude," Noah said, "you're all over the internet." Marcus frowned. "What are you talking about?" Noah pulled out his phone, thumbed through a feed, and held up a post. The video from the mall, the one Marcus had seen on TV, was now zoomed in and edited. A red circle marked him in the background, frozen mid-step. The caption read, "Who is this guy? Witness or accomplice?" Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. "Accomplice." Noah shook his head. "They're saying you distracted the cops. Some people think you were, with that kid. Look, it's garbage, but it's spreading." Marcus's stomach knotted. "Who's posting this?" "Some anonymous account. But it's everywhere, TikTok, X, Reddit. People are even tagging your school." Marcus slammed his locker shut. The sound echoed down the hall. He didn't say anything for a moment, just breathed, slow, controlled, the way Angela had taught him when he got angry as a kid. Noah lowered his voice. "You okay?" Marcus nodded stiffly. "Yeah, I'm fine." But he wasn't. Every corner of the hallway felt like it was watching him. Every glance felt like an accusation. By the time he reached home, there was a police cruiser parked down the street. He stood at the window, staring. The car didn't move for hours. That evening, he finally dialed the number Agent Turner had given him. The phone rang twice before the same calm voice answered. "Turner." "It's Marcus," he said. "Someone's spreading lies about me online, saying I was part of it." There was a pause. "I know. You know." Turner's tone remained flat. "It's not unexpected. These things happen when footage leaks. Stay off social media and don't respond to anything." Marcus's frustration sharpened. You said you wanted to help. Then do something. Helping you, Turner said, means keeping you quiet. The less you say, the safer you are. Safe from who? Another pause. From everyone. Then the line clicked dead. The next morning, Marcus found a folded note slid under his door. The handwriting was clean, deliberate. If you keep talking to them, your mother will pay for it. He sat on the edge of his bed, the paper shaking in his hands. The window blinds were closed, but he felt eyes on him all the same. He grabbed his jacket and went straight to Noah's place. Noah opened the door, half asleep, hoodie inside out. What happened? Marcus shoved the note at him. Noah read it, his eyes widening. Man, you gotta tell someone. I did. The FBI. And they said to stay quiet. Noah exhaled. Then we find out who's doing this. Marcus shook his head. You don't get it. Whoever this is, they know where I live. They're watching us. Noah leaned against the wall, thinking. Then they made a mistake sending this. Because now you know they're scared of you. Marcus looked up. Scared. Yeah. Nobody threatens someone who's irrelevant. They're trying to make you disappear before you figure something out. It was reckless logic, but it sparked something in Marcus, a sense of defiance that cut through the fear. That night, he went back to the mall. The place looked different in darkness. Half the lights off, the glass doors reflecting his own shadow. He stood where the boy had been tackled, tracing the faint mark where the blood had stained the concrete. From behind him, a voice said, "You shouldn't be here." He turned. Agent Turner stepped out of the shadows, dressed in black, his expression unreadable. Marcus stiffened. Are you following me now? Turner didn't deny it. You're being watched by more people than you realize. We're trying to protect you. Protect me? Marcus snapped. From who you? Turner's eyes flicked toward the parking lot, scanning the shadows. There are things you don't understand. The officers from that night, they weren't acting alone. This goes higher than the department. Marcus's pulse quickened. Then tell me what's going on. Turner stepped closer, his tone lowering. There's a task force investigating internal corruption, dirty connections between law enforcement and private contractors. The boy they arrested? He was a courier. He carried something he shouldn't have. And you, Marcus, you're now part of the evidence trail. Marcus's throat went dry. What did he have? Turner hesitated. A flash drive. Marcus frowned. And what does that have to do with me? Turner met his gaze. Because it's missing, and you were the last one near him before he was taken. Marcus blinked, stunned. You think I have it? I think, Turner said quietly, someone wants everyone to believe you do. The words hit like ice. Before Marcus could respond, headlights flared across the parking lot. Two cars pulling in fast, tires grinding against asphalt. Turner's expression hardened. Run. What? Go. Marcus didn't think. He bolted toward the back exit. Behind him, the sound of doors slamming, men shouting. Turner drew his weapon. Glass shattered. Marcus pushed through the alley, the cold air cutting at his lungs. He didn't stop until he reached the main road. The city lights blurred around him, neon bleeding into rain. Somewhere behind him, sirens began to wail again. He didn't know who to trust, the cops, the agents, or anyone at all. But one thing was clear now. Whatever happened at the mall wasn't random. Someone had chosen him for a reason. And someone else wanted to make sure he never found out why. Marcus spent the next 2 days hiding in his room, blinds drawn, the silence around him so heavy it began to hum. The world outside moved on, sirens, news cycles, gossip, but for him, time thickened, slowed. Every sound made him flinch. The creak of the house settling, the hum of the refrigerator, the soft click of Angela's footsteps in the hall. He'd started sleeping in his clothes, just in case he had to run. Angela noticed. She noticed everything. The shadows under his eyes, the way he jumped at small noises, the way his phone stayed powered off. On the third night, she knocked on his door. Marcus, she said gently, open up. He hesitated, then unlocked it. Angela stepped in with folded arms, her voice level but firm. You've been shutting me out for 3 days. What's happening? He looked down, searching for words that didn't sound like panic. Someone's after me, Mom. Angela's breath caught. What do you mean after you? They think I took something. Something from that kid at the mall. Her face hardened. Who's they? Marcus hesitated. The FBI. And someone else. I don't even know anymore. Angela's hand trembled slightly as she brushed a strand of hair from her face. This isn't funny, Marcus. I'm not joking. He went to his drawer, pulled out the photo, the one with the red words scrawled across it. This was left at our door. Angela took it. Her face was drained of color. She stared at the picture for a long time, her lips moving slightly as if reading the words again and again. Then she whispered, Where did you get this? It was taped to the door the night Turner came to see me. Angela's hands tightened on the photo. Her jaw clenched. Turner. Agent Turner. FBI. She looked at him sharply, her voice barely above a whisper. Did he tell you that? Marcus blinked. What do you mean? Angela turned away, pacing the room. You said he showed you a badge. Yeah. Did you see the seal? Marcus paused. The badge had flashed silver and real enough in the moment. But now, in his memory, it felt different, too fast, too rehearsed. Angela's voice dropped lower. Marcus, listen to me. Turner isn't the FBI. He stared at her, confusion flooding his chest. What? I know that name, she said, pressing her palm against the wall like she needed something solid to hold on to. When your father was arrested, there was a man at the courthouse. Said he worked for Internal Affairs, said he wanted to help. His name was Turner. Same face, same eyes. He wasn't in the government. He was private, part of a security firm that cleaned up dirty cases. He disappeared after your father's sentencing. Marcus felt the air leave his lungs. You're saying the man I met is working for whoever your father exposed. He stumbled back, his heartbeat stuttering. Dad never. Angela cut him off. Your father was investigating police contracts tied to private corporations. He thought he'd found proof that certain companies were paying for protection, manipulating reports, even covering up violence. He tried to go public. Days later, they charged him with inciting a riot. The evidence vanished. I didn't tell you because I thought it was over. But if Turner's back, her voice broke. It means it never ends. Marcus sank into the chair, his thoughts crashing. Then what do they want with me? Angela swallowed hard. They think you have what your father didn't prove. Marcus rubbed his temples, his pulse hammering. A flash drive. Turner said the boy had one. Angela's eyes widened. Then he was trying to get it back. He looked up at her. You think Dad knew about it? I think, she said slowly, someone hid it from the people Turner works for. And now they're trying to make sure it never surfaces. A sharp knock interrupted them. Both froze. Angela mouthed, Don't move. She stepped quietly to the window, parted the curtain. A black sedan sat idling by the curb, the same kind Marcus had seen before. Go, she whispered. Out the back. Marcus hesitated. Mom. Now. He slipped through the back door into the wet grass, his shoes sinking slightly in the mud. He didn't look back until he heard the front door open. Voices murmured, calm, practiced. Then Angela's voice, trembling. He's not here. Marcus ducked behind the fence, watching as Turner stepped into the hallway, his silhouette framed in the dim porch light. He couldn't hear what they said, only saw Turner lift a photo, the one from the envelope. Angela's hand shook as she took it. Turner said something short, clipped, and left. Marcus waited until the sedan pulled away before returning inside. Angela was sitting at the kitchen table, hands clasped tightly in her lap, eyes fixed on the door. He knows where we live, she whispered. Marcus nodded slowly. He's not FBI. You were right. She looked up, tears catching the light. Then we have to go to the real police. Marcus hesitated. What if they're part of it too? The question hung in the air. Angela's shoulders sagged. Then we have no one. The next day, Marcus searched his father's old boxes in the attic. Dust floated through the air like slow snow. Most of it was old paperwork, letters, faded newspaper clippings. But near the bottom of a worn suitcase, he found a black notebook wrapped in plastic. Inside, cramped handwriting filled the pages, names, dates, dollar amounts, references to security contracts, and Project Renner. At the last page, a note. If they find me, look for the courier. The truth always finds a way. D.G. Marcus closed the notebook, his pulse racing. The courier, he muttered. The boy from them all. Suddenly it all connected. The flash drive, the attack, the lies. The boy had been carrying something that tied to his father's investigation. And whoever Turner really worked for wanted to bury it. He shoved the notebook into his bag and climbed down from the attic. When he reached his room, his phone, the one he'd turned off days ago, buzzed to life on its own. A new message flashed on the screen. You're getting close. Stop looking. He froze. His phone hadn't been on Wi-Fi. Then another message. Your mother has what we want. Marcus's chest tightened. No. He ran downstairs, heart pounding. Mom. Angela wasn't in the kitchen. The front door was open. On the floor near the doorway. Her phone, face cracked, buzzing faintly. A car engine revved outside. He bolted through the door just in time to see the same black sedan speed down the street. He screamed her name, running after it until his lungs burned. But the car disappeared into the night. Hours later, Marcus sat in the dark, the house hollow and cold around him. The notebook lay open beside him, his hands shaking as he flipped through it. Half the entries were coded, strings of numbers, initials, and strange symbols. Then, near the center, a name, Turner, liaison, paid to silence. The truth hit him like a knife. Turner hadn't been protecting him. He'd been using him to find the missing drive, to trace whatever his father had hidden. The betrayal snapped something in Marcus. He'd trusted Turner, even if only for a moment. He'd believed that somewhere in the chaos, there was someone trying to help. Now, there was no illusion left. He looked at the note again. Your mother has what we want. It was possible, he realized, that she didn't even know. He tore through the house, searching everything, drawers, closets, photo frames. Then, in the small box under Angela's bed, he found a flash drive sealed in a folded napkin. Written on the paper, in his father's handwriting. If you're reading this, I didn't make it. Marcus stared at it, the weight of generations of silence pressing down on him. The betrayal wasn't just Turner's. It was systemic, years deep, hidden behind the facade of justice and authority. And now his mother is gone because of it. He gripped the drive tightly, his reflection catching in its metal surface. He knew then that the story wasn't about surviving anymore. It was about exposing them. But somewhere, under the hum of his anger, a darker thought whispered, if Turner had been part of the same system that destroyed his father, then who was really pulling Turner's strings? And what if Angela's disappearance wasn't just abduction? What if she'd known all along what she was protecting, and who she was protecting it from? The night Angela disappeared, the house became a tomb. Every light Marcus turned on seemed to expose another layer of what he didn't know. He'd grown up believing the walls held memories. Now they felt like evidence. Every photograph, every document, every faint outline of dust on a shelf seemed to be pointing at something he couldn't yet see. He sat at the kitchen table with a flash drive in front of him, untouched. He'd been staring at it for hours, afraid to plug it in. The message still glowed on his phone. Your mother has what we want. It wasn't a threat anymore. It was confirmation. They had her. He wiped his face and opened his father's notebook again. Near the back, one more line caught his eye. If compromised, contact R. No last name. No number. Just a single letter. Marcus turned the pages over, feeling like every scribble was part of some larger cipher. Then he saw it, pressed faintly into the paper's edge, like an indentation from another page. A phone number. He traced it with his finger, hesitated, then dialed. The line clicked. Static filled the air. Then a voice, low, deliberate. "Who is this?" "My name's Marcus Gray. My father was David Gray. I think you knew him." Silence. Then a quiet exhale. "You shouldn't have called this number. He's dead. My mother's missing. I have his notebook and a flash drive they want." "Where are you?" "Home." The voice sharpened. "Leave. Now." "Wait, who are you?" But the line went dead. Marcus gripped the phone, his pulse pounding. Then headlights swept across the window. A car stopped outside. He killed the lights and crouched behind the counter. The front door creaked open. Heavy boots stepped inside. Two voices, calm and practiced. One of them, Turner. Marcus's blood turned to ice. "He's not here," said the second man. "Neighbors say the car hasn't moved." Turner grunted. "He's close. Check the basement." Marcus inched toward the back door, careful not to let the floorboards groan. The flash drive was still on the table. He reached for it just as the second man's flashlight beam sliced through the dark. Got movement. Marcus bolted. The sound of boots thundered behind him. He burst through the back door and sprinted into the alley, rain slicking the pavement. Shouts followed. Tires screeched. He darted between fences, cut through a neighbor's yard, and didn't stop until his lungs ached. The rain masked his steps, but not his fear. Somewhere behind him, the black sedan prowled slowly, engine low, like a predator sniffing blood. He ducked into an abandoned laundromat, crouched behind a row of rusted dryers, and tried to steady his breathing. He pulled out his phone, battery at 3%, and redialed the number. The voice answered again, quiet but sharp. "You didn't leave fast enough. They're after me." "I know. You led them straight to the signal." "What signal?" "Your phone. They've been tracking it since the first message." Marcus dropped the phone like it burned him. "Who are you?" "Someone your father trusted. Someone who doesn't want you dead." "You have the drive." "Yes." "Good. Keep it off any network. There's code in it, something your father was decrypting. He called it Project Renner. That's why they killed him." Marcus's voice cracked. "What's on it?" "Proof that half the city's law enforcement contracts are fake. Money laundering, blackmail, covert surveillance. The company Turner works for, Gray Watch, they manage it all." Marcus pressed a hand to his forehead. "And my mother?" Silence. Then, quietly, "They'll use her until they get what they need." He felt something collapse inside him. "I'm not leaving her." The voice softened just slightly. "Then you'd better start moving. There's a train yard 3 miles west. Get there by dawn. You'll find a woman named Rachel. She worked with your father. She'll know what to do." The line clicked again. Marcus sat in the dark, soaked and trembling. He picked up the phone and stared at the dying battery icon. Then he looked at the flash drive, still clutched in his hand. His father's handwriting flashed through his mind. The truth always finds a way. He stood and ran. The city at night was a labyrinth of rust and rain. The streets gleamed like oil-slick veins, traffic lights bleeding color into puddles. Marcus stayed in the shadows, keeping low, moving fast. Every passing car felt like a spotlight. By the time he reached the train yard, dawn had started to push at the horizon, gray and cold. The air smelled of steel and dust. Freight cars sat in long, endless lines, silent as gravestones. He slipped through a broken fence and scanned the yard. Then, from behind a shipping container, a woman stepped out. Marcus. She was older than he expected, late 30s, maybe 40, with a sharp face and eyes that missed nothing. She wore a long coat and gloves, and carried a small pistol holstered at her hip. "Rachel." She nodded. "You look like him." "You knew my father?" "I worked with him, until he stopped listening." Marcus frowned. Listening to what? Rachel's jaw tightened. To fear. She motioned for him to follow. They climbed into a storage car and closed the door. Inside, dim light filtered through cracks in the metal. Rachel sat opposite him, arms crossed. Let me see the drive. Marcus hesitated. How do I know I can trust you? You don't, she said flatly. But if you don't, you'll be dead before nightfall. He handed it over. She slid it into a portable reader connected to a small laptop. Code began to scroll across the screen. Encrypted data. Thousands of lines of it. Rachel exhaled. He did it. He actually pulled the whole archive. What's in it? Contracts, payment logs, communications. Proof that Graywatch has been feeding falsified intel to law enforcement, manipulating cases, and blackmailing city officials. They use digital forensics to rewrite reality. Marcus's hand shook. Then Turner is the cleaner. He erases anyone who finds out. Marcus leaned forward. He took my mother. Rachel's eyes flicked to him. Then they think she's the leverage. They won't kill her, yet. But if you try to go public without the full decryption key, they'll bury both of you. He swallowed hard. How do we unlock it? Rachel hesitated. Your father split the key in two. One half is here. The other it's biometric. Marcus stared. What do you mean? Encoded into a DNA sequence. He blinked. Whose? Rachel looked at him. Yours. Marcus froze. Mine. Your father was paranoid. He knew this might happen. He embedded the key using your genetic profile as part of a security layer. That's why Turner's been hunting you. They don't just want the drive. They need you to open it. Marcus's throat went dry. Then Mom was taken because they thought she knew where I was. Rachel nodded. Exactly. And now that you've shown movement, they know you're alive. Outside, the faint rumble of engines echoed through the yard. Rachel killed the laptop's light and peered through the crack. They're here. Marcus followed her gaze. Two SUVs rolled slowly between the rail lines, headlights sweeping the cars. Rachel grabbed his arm. If they find us, you run. Don't stop. Understand? He shook his head. I'm not leaving you. This isn't about me, she said. It's about what you're carrying. The beam of a flashlight sliced across the car's interior. Rachel drew her pistol, silent and precise. The door slid open. A burst of light, a shout, and the world erupted. Gunfire cracked. Rachel pushed Marcus to the floor. Bullets tore through the metal walls. The laptop shattered, sparks jumping across the floor. Marcus crawled toward it, grabbing the drive as Rachel returned fire. Go, she screamed. He scrambled through the back door, rolled under another train car, and sprinted into the maze of rust and shadow. His ears rang. Somewhere behind him, Rachel shouted his name. Then a single, echoing gunshot cut through the noise. Marcus froze. Then silence. He ran until his legs gave out, until he collapsed behind a pile of old rail ties. He pressed his hands to his face, shaking, rain mixing with blood. Rachel was gone. His mother was gone. Turner was closing in. He looked down at the flash drive, now cracked from the impact. The casing split, but the core intact. Inside it was everything his father died for, and everything they were still willing to kill for. For the first time, he realized the truth wasn't going to save him. It was going to destroy everything left of his life before it ever saw the light. The storm broke just before midnight, drenching the city in sheets of hard, merciless rain. Lightning split the sky in jagged veins of white, flashing across rooftops and glinting off the wet glass of downtown high-rises. Marcus ran through it all, hood up, soaked to the bone, lungs burning, clutching the cracked flash drive like a heartbeat in his hand. His legs ached, his mind blurred, but the words in Rachel's last breath wouldn't leave him. Finish what he started. He had one name left in his father's notes: Federal Plaza, Sublevel 3, the headquarters of Graywatch's data operations. The same building that bore the FBI crest over its doors. the same one Agent Turner had sworn was just another office. By the time Marcus reached the plaza, the streets were almost empty. The rain had turned the world silver. He moved quickly, head down, past the guards, blending with the last few employees leaving for the night. His stolen keycard from Rachel's coat buzzed green when he swiped it at the elevator. He stepped inside and pressed B3. The elevator descended silently, the sound of rain fading into a mechanical hum. His reflection in the mirrored wall looked like a stranger, eyes dark, face pale, lips set in grim determination. When the doors opened, the world below felt colder. Rows of servers stretched into darkness, blue lights blinking like artificial stars. The hum of machines filled the air, steady and endless. He moved through the aisles, his heart pounding. Then, a voice echoed behind him. "Put it down, Marcus." He turned. Agent Turner stood at the far end of the corridor, coat soaked, pistol drawn. Behind him, two armed men in tactical gear fanned out. Marcus's grip tightened around the flash drive. "You killed my father." Turner's expression barely changed. "Your father made a choice. He thought truth was a weapon he could control." Marcus took a step back. "He was trying to expose you." Turner's voice lowered, calm and precise. "No, Marcus. He was working with us, until he wasn't." The words hit him like a blow. "That's a lie." Turner holstered his gun and took a slow step forward. "You think Rachel told you the truth? She was one of us, too. Grey Watch doesn't hire people, we absorb them. She tried to use you the same way your father did. You're not the key, Marcus. You're the bait." Marcus's chest tightened. "You're lying." "Am I?" Turner gestured toward the servers. "Your father helped build this system. The surveillance net, the laundering channels, the predictive targeting programs. They were his designs. He came to us after your mother was arrested on a fraud charge. We made it disappear. That's the kind of leverage that keeps people loyal." Marcus shook his head, refusing to believe it, but doubt crept in anyway. His father's notes, the half-burned papers, the quiet arguments at night, it all replayed in fragments. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "The key," Turner said simply. "Your father locked the drive to your genetic code. Without it, the data is useless. But with it, we can erase everything: witnesses, traces, accountability. You can walk away from this alive." Marcus swallowed hard. "And my mother? She's alive," Turner said, his tone coldly measured. "We kept our word. But that can change." Lightning flared through the glass-paneled ceiling above, throwing their shadows across the servers. The hum deepened. Marcus took a step back, glancing toward a nearby console. He could feel Rachel's voice echoing in his head. The truth always finds a way. He slid the flash drive into the terminal. The system came alive, code flooding the screen in cascading streams. Turner's eyes narrowed. "What are you doing?" Marcus didn't answer. The console beeped. "Biometric verification required." He pressed his thumb to the scanner. The machine pulsed red, then green. Files began to decrypt, folders labeled asset routing, surveillance network, homicide redline files. Data poured across the monitors. Turner lunged forward. "Stop." Marcus hit enter. The servers roared to life, fans spinning faster. The system flashed uploading, secure channel active. Turner raised his pistol. "You're leaking it." Marcus's eyes locked on his. "To every major news network in the country." Turner's face twisted. "You have no idea what you've done." Marcus's voice trembled but didn't break. "You killed Rachel. You lied about my father. You tried to destroy my mother. Maybe I don't know everything, but I know enough." Turner fired. The bullet grazed Marcus's shoulder, spinning him sideways. He crashed into the console, pain exploding through his arm. The flash drive snapped from the port, sparks flying. Turner stepped closer, gun aimed at Marcus's chest. "You think this ends with one upload? We own the truth. We rewrite it every day." Marcus stared at him through the pane. Then, I guess it's your turn to watch it slip away. Behind Turner, the wall of screens shifted. Live feeds replaced the code. News anchors reading headlines, networks flashing breaking reports. FBI data leak exposes illegal operations. Turner froze. The color drained from his face. No. Marcus forced a weak smile. Guess your rewrite failed. Turner raised the gun again, but before he could fire, the ceiling above shattered from an explosion. Concrete and glass rained down. A squad of armed agents in dark tactical gear stormed the room. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Drop your weapon. Turner turned in disbelief. You're making a mistake. They're using you. He didn't finish. A single shot echoed, and he fell. Marcus collapsed against the console, clutching his arm. One of the agents approached, a woman with sharp eyes and a voice that cut through the chaos. Marcus Gray, she said. You're safe now. He laughed weakly, the sound hollow. Safe. She helped him to his feet. We've been watching Gray Watch for 2 years. Your upload confirmed everything. He looked past her at Turner's body, then at the endless servers still blinking in the dark. And what happens now? The agent hesitated. Now we clean up. Marcus shook his head. That's what they said, too. Hours later, dawn crept over the city, pale and tired. Marcus sat on the back steps of a hospital, his arm bandaged, the rain finally easing. The world was quiet again, but it didn't feel peaceful. A car pulled up, a plain sedan. Angela stepped out, her face pale, eyes swollen from exhaustion. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she walked over and pulled him into her arms. He let her hold him. For the first time in days, he let himself breathe. They told me you were gone, she whispered. I almost was. She pulled back, studying him. What did you do, Marcus? He looked out toward the skyline, where the morning sun caught the tops of the towers. I told the truth. Angela followed his gaze. And was it worth it? He didn't answer right away. The truth had cost him everything, his home, his safety, his innocence. But somewhere in the chaos, it had also given him clarity. He turned to her, his voice quiet but steady. Yeah, it was. The city was waking again. Sirens in the distance, traffic lights blinking, news vans gathering like vultures. The world would debate the story for months, maybe years, who was right, who was corrupt, who was expendable. But Marcus knew one thing. His father's words had been right. The truth always finds a way. As the morning sun broke through the clouds, he slipped his father's notebook from his pocket. On the last page, in handwriting he'd never seen before, a final message had been added. Maybe by his father, maybe by someone else. Truth doesn't free you. It tests you. What you do next decides who you become. Marcus closed the notebook and looked out over the drenched city. The storm had passed, but its echo lingered inside him, and in every shadow that had tried to swallow him whole. He stood, took one last look at the skyline, and walked toward whatever came next, no longer running from the truth, but carrying it with him. Morning sunlight filtered through the hospital blinds, weak but persistent, cutting thin gold lines across the white walls. The world outside had changed overnight. The story was everywhere, screens flashing with Marcus's face, headlines screaming about corruption, betrayal, and surveillance. People were calling him a whistleblower, a hero, a criminal, depending on which channel they watched. But sitting there in the quiet, with his mother asleep in the chair beside him, Marcus didn't feel like any of those things. He just felt tired. His bandaged shoulder ached with every heartbeat, a steady reminder of how close he had come to disappearing like his father. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic and rain, though the storm had finally broken. He reached over to touch his mother's hand. Her fingers tightened weakly around his, the skin soft and worn from years of holding on too long. When she opened her eyes, there was a silence between them that said everything words couldn't. Fear, relief, sorrow, and something unspoken, pride maybe. I thought I lost you, she whispered. I thought I'd lost you too, he said softly. Angela sat up slowly, wincing as she adjusted her posture. They told me what happened. About your father. About Graywatch. Her voice trembled but didn't break. I kept telling myself he couldn't have just vanished. I knew there had to be more. Marcus looked down at the notebook resting on his lap. The pages were warped from rain, but his father's writing was still there, deliberate, sharp, meticulous. He tried to fix it, Marcus said quietly, but he got trapped in the same web he built. Angela nodded, tears welling up. He thought he could outsmart them, that he could keep us safe by playing along. I wanted to believe him. I didn't know how deep it went. Marcus's throat tightened. He didn't mean to hurt anyone. No, she said, shaking her head. But sometimes good intentions aren't enough. They sat there for a long time, the low hum of hospital machines filling the space between them. By afternoon, Marcus was discharged. Outside, the streets were flooded with reporters and flashing cameras. Police barriers lined the entrances, but he slipped out through a side exit with his mother, keeping his hood up and his head down. The rain had stopped, but the city still felt wet, reflective, like it was trying to wash itself clean. They walked in silence for several blocks before Angela spoke. They say Turner's dead. Graywatch's upper command is under investigation. The Bureau's claiming oversight. Do you think any of it will stick? Marcus thought about it for a long moment. Maybe some of it. Maybe just enough. But not all of it. No, he said quietly. Not all. Angela sighed, her breath visible in the cool air. Then what was it all for? He stopped walking, turned to face her. For people to see. That's the only way it changes, when people stop pretending not to see. She looked at him the way she used to when he was a boy, and said something too grown for his age. Half pride, half worry. You sound just like him. He smiled faintly. I hope not entirely. They reached the bus stop, and she sat while he stood, staring at the traffic rolling past. Billboards were already updating. News graphics flashing, corporate logos replaced by headlines. Faces of men in suits plastered beneath words like investigation and corruption probe. Marcus watched as people walked by, heads down, eyes on their phones, consuming the story as if it were just another tragedy to scroll past. For the first time, he wondered if truth by itself was ever enough. That night, back at the house, the power had been restored, but the place didn't feel like home anymore. Every sound echoed. Every shadow reminded him of the night men broke in. He moved slowly from room to room, his hand grazing the walls, taking in what was left. In his father's study, the smell of dust and old paper lingered. The shelves had been ransacked, the floor littered with torn files and fallen books. On the desk sat a photograph, one Marcus hadn't noticed before, of his parents on their wedding day. His father looked younger, smiling with the easy certainty of a man who still believed life could be contained within the lines of his own plans. Marcus picked up the frame and set it upright again. You tried, he whispered. You really did. He opened the drawer, found a single folded note that must have slipped past the search teams. It was addressed in his father's handwriting. To Marcus. Hands trembling, he unfolded it. If you're reading this, I failed to stop them. But maybe you can do what I couldn't. Don't let the world tell you the truth is dangerous. It's only dangerous to those who build their power on lies. When the moment comes, don't run from it. Stand still, even if it breaks you. Especially then. Remember, son, it's not about saving everyone. It's about saving your own soul first. Marcus stared at the note until his vision blurred. Then he folded it carefully and slipped it into the back of the notebook. For a long time, he sat in the dim room, listening to the rain begin again outside. The sound was softer now, not violent, more like a reminder that storms end, even if they take a piece of you when they go. Weeks passed. The investigation widened, drawing in senators, corporate heads, even officers Marcus had seen patrolling his own street. Whistleblowers emerged. Leaked documents flooded the web. The city buzzed with outrage, protests, statements, televised hearings. But the noise didn't make Marcus feel victorious. It made him uneasy. Truth, he realized, wasn't something you set free and then walk away from. It had to be guarded, lived with. It had consequences that didn't end when the cameras turned off. One evening, he stood outside the old mall, now closed off, windows boarded, the parking lot silent. The spot where the boy had been tackled was still faintly stained, the memory of violence etched into the concrete. The news vans were gone, the crowds gone too. Just silence and wind. He crouched, touching the ground where it had all started. The air smelled faintly of metal and rain. He remembered how frozen he'd been that night, watching, too afraid to move. Everything that came after, the deaths, the lies, the betrayals, had been born in that stillness. Now, standing there again, he made himself promise he'd never be still like that again. As the sun began to set, the clouds burned orange and gold, reflecting off the damp pavement. Angela's car pulled up behind him. She leaned out the window. "Are you coming home?" Marcus turned, giving the mall one last look. "Yeah," he said. "I'm coming." They drove in silence for a while. The city lights began to flicker on, one by one, until the streets glowed like veins of fire. Angela finally spoke. "What now?" Marcus stared out the window. "I don't know, but I want to understand what comes after the truth." She glanced at him. "And what's that?" "Accountability," he said quietly. "And forgiveness. Maybe both." She smiled faintly. "That's a hard balance." "Yeah," he said, "but it's the only one that makes sense." The car turned onto their street, the tires whispering against the wet asphalt. Somewhere far off, a siren wailed, not frantic, just distant, like the echo of something that used to mean fear, but now just meant life was still moving. Marcus watched the reflection of the city lights glide across the windshield. The world outside was messy, imperfect, and still deeply broken, but it was honest. For the first time, he could live with that. He looked over at his mother, her tired eyes soft but steady. "Mom." "Yes." "Do you think he'd be proud of us?" Angela looked ahead, the faintest smile on her lips. "I think he'd be proud that you didn't stay silent." Marcus leaned back, letting the hum of the road fill the quiet. The rain started again, gentle against the glass, washing the city in silver. Somewhere deep inside him, the fear that had lived there for weeks began to ease, not because things were fixed, but because he'd finally learned the truth his father had been chasing all along. That truth doesn't end things. It begins with them. And sometimes, survival isn't about staying hidden. It's about standing where the light can find you, no matter who's watching. So, tell me, if you were in his shoes, mocked and underestimated, would you have revealed your success or walked away in silence? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that flip the script on arrogance.